Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader Guide, Origin Guide, all Origin subclasses in the game. Let's go.
Are you ready for Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader? As I am. The Emperor protects.
The first origin would be Astra Militarum Commander, a supportive, ranged rogue trader that buffs allies that are close to him, so a tile from the rogue trader. Okay, everyone that's around him are stronger. That's in short what this origin does. If you decide to go with Militarum Commander, there is no friendly fire. Okay, you can't hurt your own units. What is the important thing to say here is that intelligence provides Medicare. Medicare is there to heal up, to cure injuries and so on. Now let's check out the talents for the Astra Militarum Commander. The first talent would be Suppression Fire. While the Astra Militarum Commander is under the Regimental Tactics effect, their single target melee range attacks and area attacks gain 20% to dodge reduction, parry reduction and cover penetration against enemies attracted to the commander or their allies. I'll put it up very short. If you are close to enemy, their stats drop and they're easier to hit. If you are close to allies, their stats go up and they're harder to hit and they're gonna hit more often. That's what it does in short. Suppression fire is extremely useful when enemies are in full cover, so you can actually hit them in full cover. In the game, there is no cover, half cover and full cover. Everything impacts your chance to hit. No cover, highest chance to hit. Half cover, mid chance to hit. Full cover, low chance to hit. With Militarum Commander, low chance to hit becomes medium, medium becomes huge chance to hit. That's how this talent works. The next talent would be Drown Them in Shots. While the Astra Militarum Commander is under the Regimental Tactics effect, and Regimental Tactics would be his main ability, okay, main origin ability. So while you are in Regimental Tactics effect, all allies will gain 5% to rate of fire for every attack they've made since the start of this effect. It bolsters the firepower of allies. To be more precise, you're gonna hurt more. All your allies will hurt more. The next talent would be Friend in Need. While the Astra Militarum Commander is under the Regimental Tactics effect, killing an enemy adjacent to an ally grants that ally an additional +10 to momentum. In order to understand what the talent does, we need to understand what the momentum is. The more momentum is built up on your companions or on you, the more you can use your heroic skills, spells, or better to say, ultimate skills, the most powerful skills in the game. With Friend in Need, your allies will accumulate more momentum, hence they're gonna use their ultimate abilities earlier in combat. Very good talent. The next talent would be Unflinching Heroism. Every time the Astra Militarum Commander's ally uses a Heroic Act, and Heroic Act is the ultimate spell that you build with a momentum from the Friend in Need, okay? So when you use a Heroic Act, the commander will gain +5 to all of their characteristics until the end of combat. What are characteristics? It's this, okay? And they gain +5 to all characteristics, to all stats basically, until the end of combat. It's a huge buff for the main protagonist, for your rogue trader, okay, for your main. And the last one would be Shoulder to Shoulder. While the Astra Militarum Commander is adjacent to an ally, any ally, the commander deals additional +10 plus perception bonus damage to all enemies that are close to commander's allies. This stacks with Regimental Tactics. Again, it triggers Regimental Tactics here. That is an active spell. And then Shoulder to Shoulder. What it means basically, you're gonna hurt you as a main character, your main, will hurt enemies that are close to your allies. So if you, for example, send a tank, okay, in the middle of enemies, and then you wanna shoot at some of the enemies that are whacking your tank, you're gonna hurt them more. Okay, that's what a passive is. And now the question is what to merge with Astra Militarum Commander. What homeworld to merge? The best homeworld to merge with Astra Militarum Commander is by far the Hive world, because support merges well with support, and the second one would be Imperial world. Those are the two homeworlds that merge extremely well with Astra Militarum Commander. I would not advise that you merge other worlds with Astra Militarum Commander origin. Okay, so use the two I gave. The next origin would be Commisar. Commisar receives a feature called At All Costs. The Commisar next single shot or a single target melee attack will apply the following effect. On an enemy, the target becomes marked. The ally who kills the marked enemy will gain additional turn after the current one, the one they play. For example, if you apply a mark and ally shoots, okay, he can play again after it. Once you end turn, he plays again. With +2 action points and +4 movement points, or better to say, you can move and attack again. If you use single shot on an allied target, all allies will gain an additional +1 action point and +3 movement points for the next round. Extremely useful. Again, this is a supportive role. What's the difference from Astra Militarum Commander? This is an aggressive support. Now let's check the talents. The first one would be Duty and Honor. Well, the Commissar's ally is under the effects of At All Costs, again, under this. So, while an ally is under the effects, the ally suffers 50% damage, but he gains 2 action points and 4 movement points instead of +1 and +3. What it means, when you wanna finish something off, when you wanna go all in, burst out the enemies, you whack an ally and he gains double action points, so you can actually finish the fight, but he's gonna lose 50% HP in return. So it's a good thing to use this on an ally that's good with HP, that's strong in health. The next talent would be Show Them Contempt. While the Commissar is close to an enemy, all allies will gain Commissar's Fellowship bonus divided by 2 plus Resolve. Frankly, it's not that good of a talent. The next would be Motivation. Anytime Commissar grants additional move points to any ally character, they will give +2 movement points more. Perfect, and I'll explain how it works later on. Perfect on a leader. Basically, Commissar represents the classic leader in the team. That's what a Commissar is. Additional action points, additional movement points, and you can be aggressive from range, okay, with ballistic weapons. The next talent would be Summary Execution. If the Commissar kills the target with At All Costs, the thing that you trigger, the main feature of the subclass of Origin, they can use At All Costs once more during combat for 0 action points. Basically, you can use this thing twice if you kill an enemy. Okay, very good. You can spam it. And the last talent would be Forward to Glory. When momentum is less than 100 points, killing the marked enemy or targeting an ally grants 20 plus 2, multiply that with Fellowship bonus momentum. What it does? It builds up momentum. When you build momentum, you can use heroics, or better to say ultimate skills. You will be able to use them earlier. Extremely good. In other words, very good passive. Very good talent. So what is the home world that we can play Commissar as the Origin world? Okay, considering that we got weapon skill, the best by far is a tanky support from the High world, followed by Death world, that can also be played as a Commissar, followed by all-around Imperial world that can also be played as Commisar. And if you want to play as a ranged Commisar, then you're gonna go with a Fortress world homeworld. By far the best option is the High world for Commisar, and that's about it. The next origin would be Crime Lord. What is Crime Lord? Very simple, it's the damage dealing rogue trader, and it merges extremely well with the homeworld Fortress world homeworld. That's the ideal case. It can also be merged with Voidborn, but Fortress world is the one to go. Of course, all around Imperial world works as well with the Crime Lord origin, but this is definitely the one you wanna go for. Okay, so what does the Crime Lord have as the main feature? It's a surefire plan. At the start of combat, the Crime Lord will gain plus intelligence stacks of the surefire plan effect. That's why I said it merges well with the Void world as well, better to say with a Voidborn. Activation of this ability consumes 1 stack and makes the next action stronger depending on the type of action. If the Crime Lord attacks, they deal more perception percentage bonus damage. If the Crime Lord moves, they gain plus 10 plus 2, multiply that with perception bonus, percentage, dodge and parry until the start. You're gonna be harder to hit. And if the Crime Lord uses a non-damaging ability on an enemy, some debuff for example from the Voidborn, that enemy suffers minus 10 plus intelligence bonus, multiply that with 2, percentage penalty to damage for 1 round. You debuff an enemy and then they're weaker, or better to say, you're gonna deal more damage against the enemy that's debuffed, even more damage than the debuff does. Surefire plan is not one deal only per combat, you can use it as many times as you like. Now let's check the talents. The first one would be Killing Plan. The bonus damage of a Surefire plan is increased by weapon skill bonus, killing at least 1 enemy with an attack, restores 1 stack of Surefire. You hurt more, that's the talent basically, you hurt more with ranged weapons. Escape Plan, the bonus to dodge and parry from Surefire plan is increased by Agility. The stronger your agility, the more enemies will miss you. You're gonna dodge or parry, in other words. Once you dodge or parry, you restore 1 stack of a Surefire plan, so you can use it again. Very good talent. The next one would be Disorienting Plan. An enemy affected by Surefire plan also suffers minus 10 plus 2 multiply with perception bonus percentage penalty to dodge and parry reduction. In other words, once you use Surefire plan, enemies won't dodge that much. Okay, they're gonna be easier to hit. The next one would be Contingency Plan talent. If at the start of a turn the Crime Lord has no stacks of a Surefire plan, they're gonna gain plus 1 stack. So if you use other abilities that won't give you stack of a Surefire plan, you're gonna gain 1 so you can use it on the next round. Solid talent for the class because the main feature is the Surefire plan that you're gonna rely on. And the last talent would be the Last Plan. Once per combat, if the Crime Lord has at least 1 stack of a Surefire plan, they do not die from lethal damage. Instead, they heal 5 multiplied with Surefire plan stacks, small heal, very small heal, okay, like 6, 7 to 10 HP tops, of maximum wounds, lose all stacks, and can no longer gain Surefire plan stacks. It erases Surefire plan, so if you get whacked, you don't die. You recover some HP back, but you won't be able to use Surefire plan stacks. It's like a Guardian Angel, okay, like an extra life during combat. That's what the Last Plan is. All in all, again, the best homeworlds for the Crime Lord are the Fortress world and the Voidborn. It can also be played with the Imperial world. The next origin would be Ministorum Priest. Ministorum Priest is an all-around rogue trader, great at supportive spells as well as soaking up damage, or better to say, as an off tank, as a bruiser. Supportive bruiser. The main feature for the Ministorum Priest would be the War Hymn. Grants momentum equal to 2 times Ministorum Priest willpower bonus. He comes with a strong willpower. If you pick a homeworld with a strong willpower, this is even more powerful, or better to say, bigger the momentum, the more heroic spells you can use, or better to say, you can use more ultimate skills. Okay, the best skills in the game. This ability also grants an additional willpower momentum for each enemy that is either in a 5-cell radius around the priest or was hit by the priest this turn. The more enemies around you, 5-cell radius, the stronger the War Hymn is. Or better to say, the faster you're gonna build up momentum. And when you build momentum fast, you can use heroic spells faster. And when you use heroic spells faster, you're gonna burst enemies faster. The game focuses a lot on momentum, and this is a momentum building class. Now let's check the talents for the Ministorum Priest. The first one would be Litany of Purification. All enemies in the area of effect of a War Hymn, 5-cell radius around you, will gain +1 stack of the Disturbed effect. Let's see what's Disturbed. When you disturb an enemy, they receive a penalty to their willpower and fellowship. Or better to say, they're gonna be easier to wipe with spells. Enemies that are close to the priest will gain +2 stacks of Disturb. So if someone is in a melee range of your priest, they're gonna get even more stacks. And they're gonna be even more easier to kill. Also, all demons in the area of effect suffer damage equal to the momentum restored to the priest while using this ability. If there are demons around the priest, because priests hate demons, and you use your War Hymn, okay, Litany of Purification will deal damage to them, but only to demons, not to other type of enemies. The more momentum you restore, the more you hurt. This is a momentum class, momentum origin rogue trader. The next talent would be Litany of Hatred. The Ministorum Priest and their allies in the area of effect of War Hymn will gain Priest willpower bonus divided by 2, damage for single shots, and attacks of opportunity for a round. So 5 cells radius around your priest, all allies will hurt more. That's it in short, when you use your War Hymn, the main feature. The next talent would be Shield of Fate. The Ministorum Priest gains +4 multiplied willpower bonus percentage to armor against attacks of demons and warp damage. The priest resolve is also permanently increased by willpower bonus divided by 2. So what it is in short, you are stronger and tougher against demons. Okay, demons will deal less damage to you. The next talent would be the Emperor Protects. The Ministorum Priest gains a willpower percentage chance to ignore any enemy attack. The higher your willpower, the bigger the chance you'll ignore enemy attack. They won't deal damage to you. Great talent. And the last talent would be Cleansing Fate. Melee, flame, and melt attacks against demons and psykers will deal additional damage and armor penetration. Such attacks against Xenos will deal an additional bonus that's gonna scale with willpower, and you're gonna receive additional armor penetration as well. To make it short now, and what does it mean? There is one homeworld over here that's called Forge World. If you pick Forge World, and if you pick Subskin Armor, then you're a tanky priest with a melt-up weapon or a fire weapon that's gonna eradicate demons and Xenos. If you pick Analytics, then you're a mage-like priest that's gonna eradicate demons and Xenos. Okay, and the best homeworld by far for the priest and his features and talents would be the Forge World for an aggressive priest. Damage, bulky dealing support priest. Okay. Also, a very good homeworld for your priest would be a classic high world support on support, but then you don't deal as much damage, you're more of support priest. And also all around Imperial world on the 3rd spot, and on a 4th spot would be the Voidborn, or better to say mage-like squishy nimble priest. Alright. Basically, priest is pretty much valid with all of the homeworlds. I tell you which one I believe it's best, it's the Forge world, because it's probably the most fun. You can deal a lot of damage to enemies and you buff your allies. Because Warhammer, you wanna be in the middle of combat, because it's 5 cells radius. You wanna be bulky and tanky. Forge world provides toughness. Analytic systems with augmentations will give you toughness bonus to armor. Alright, and then you're in the middle, you're soaking everything up, you're buffing allies, debuffing enemies, and you deal crazy damage with Melta weapons. AoE damage with Melta weapons. This should be the best combination for the priest. The next origin would be Navy Officer. So what is the Navy Officer? The main role is a support, ranged support, ballistics support, but basically this is an all-around origin rogue trader. The main feature would be brace for impact. For 1 round, the Navy Officer and their allies in a 3-cell radius around them gain +2 deflection for each archetype taken by the Navy Officer. They also cannot be forcefully moved or over-penetrated. Archetype is basically a class, so the higher the level, the stronger the brace for impact is. You can say that this is like a weaker origin rogue trader at the start of the game, and as it moves on he becomes stronger and stronger, so this is like a late game origin. In other words, to short this up, what Navy Officer provides is defense for the entire party. Top of it all, there is no over-penetration from enemies on your teammates when you have a Navy Officer, and no one can push your companions around you. From the talents, the first one in line would be Do Not Falter. All allies affected by brace for impact do not suffer the negative effects of melee superiority for the entire combat. Enemies do not receive melee superiority, or in other words, they cannot overwhelm you. Okay, no matter if there's 3 times more enemies than your team. Considering how many fights there are with multiple enemies at the same time, this is actually a very good talent. The next one would be Scatter. All allies affected by brace for impact suffer only half damage from all attacks of opportunity. If you're gonna move and pass through enemies, then yeah, receiving half damage from attacks of opportunity is useful, okay, but basically if you know how to position, this is a useless talent. The next talent would be Perfect Timing. All allies affected by brace for impact will gain 30% to cover penetration. The Navy Officer also permanently gains 15% to cover penetration. Basically, you will hurt enemies in cover more. No one can hide from your teammates. The next talent would be Get Off Me. With brace for impact, now it will also allow the Navy Officer to use any ranged weapon in threatened areas, knock enemies prone, and push them 1 cell away during the effect. What does it mean? Basically, you push them from full cover and they're in the open now, and you realize you have higher hit chance against them. Very useful talent, to be honest. And the last talent would be Get Into Cover. All allies affected by brace for impact gain a bonus turn with 0 action points and 3 movement points, and they increase their cover efficiency by 20% for a round. It's a movement ability, okay? You click on an ally, and if they're in the open, 3 movement points, you put them into half cover, full cover, okay? So they avoid damage if they can. Useful. Get Into Cover is quite useful talent. Skill, call it how you like. So what would be the home world for the Navy Officer? The best one to take by far would be Imperial world, all around, because Navy Officer is also all around, okay? Also what merges very well if you want to deal damage would be the Fortress world, and of course if you plan to play a Navy Officer as a full support, then you're gonna go with a Hive world for your home world. So these 3, Hive, Imperial, and Fortress, merge well with a Navy Officer. The next origin would be Noble. And what does Noble do and what it is? It's basically something like a cheese origin, a cheese class, a funny one to play with. You pick a servant, okay? One of your companions becomes your servant, and you raise their stats and you command them what to do, and they get buffed and you get buffed alongside them, okay? So it's like a fantastic duo type of gameplay, okay? So what is the main feature? It's you serve me. The noble assigns one ally who will become their servant until the end of the combat. And imagine assigning Argenta as your servant till the end of the combat. Buffed Argentina. Okay, she's gonna hurt like crazy. Anytime the noble abilities affect the servant will gain +5 to all characteristics until the start of the noble's next turn. Anytime the servant attacks a target that the noble dealt damage to the last turn, okay, so if you dealt damage to an enemy, then comes the next turn, now your servant has increased critical. Now imagine Argenta with increased critical. It's absolutely crazy. Okay, all you need to do is to create the servant out of Argenta, whack an enemy and wait for a round, and then the show begins. That's the origin. Now, what does it rely on? It relies on intelligence and on fellowship. Okay, so something like mage support, okay, psyker support, you can play it like that. And the main talents would be commands. You command your servant and what to do. The first one is you do something. If a noble uses an ability on their servant, the servant will gain extra action point for the next turn. It does not stack though. Extra action point is absolutely great, okay, it's a free shot. The next one would be you protect me. If the noble and the servant are close to each other at the start of noble's turn, they both gain temporary wounds, or better to say, they gain additional health. Now imagine casting that, for example, on some tanky companion, you're gonna become tanky as well. Okay, you like mimic the best parts of your companions as a noble. That's what a class is. The next one would be you go on. The noble servant gains movement points every turn. Additional movement points. Good on bruisers because they need to cover a lot of ground. Also can be good on soldiers like Argenta. The next talent would be you kill it. If the servant kills the target that the noble dealt damage to in the previous turn, the noble will gain +1 action point on the next turn. So you see how it perplexes, okay, from turn to turn. As long as you make commands and you create kills, you get stronger for the next round, then your servant gets stronger for the round after you, and you switch round after round. And the next one would be you are next. This talent, if the servant has less than 30% of maximum health, the noble can use you serve me once more in the battle, designing a new servant and removing the effect from the previous one. You can also switch servants in the middle of combat, okay, or better to say, you can also do you serve me with you are next. You can cast it twice basically. So what is the best option for the home world for noble origin? It's Voidborn, Hive world, and all around Imperial world. So Voidborn will provide a bit of a mage-like noble. Hive world is the pure support noble, and from the Imperial this is all around a bit of damage, okay, and a bit of support. You get to pick what you want to do here. I recommend doing Voidborn for the noble. The last class would be a Sanctioned Psyker. Sanctioned Psyker is the most complicated origin, or better to say, it is the most complicated class in the game, by far. This is Mage, basically a wizard in the world of Warhammer 40k. So, once we pick Sanctioned Psyker, the first one that we get is that all Psykers have reduced chance to trigger psychic phenomena. As you cast spells in this game, when you use your psychic powers, the bar will raise, and once it goes all the way up, psychic phenomena will happen, and a lot of stupid things happen during the combat. You summon demons basically, okay. This one reduces the chance for that to happen. 20% reduced chances. The next one would be Psy rating. The higher the Psy rating is, the more powerful spells you can get for your Psyker. And now, as you can see, we can get Psy rating 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 would be the maximum power of a Psyker. As Psy rating goes up, your spells hurt more and more. And of course also, you unlock new spells as well. Now the next one would be Still Mind talent. The Psyker resolve is increased by willpower bonus divided by 2, while Veil degradation is 10 or lower. What is Veil degradation? That is the thing that summons demons or psychic phenomena, okay? And you're gonna receive a bar during gameplay where you're gonna keep track of a psychic phenomena, alright? Once it's down, it's safe. Once it's all the way up, a lot of things can happen. If you don't spam your abilities, your Psyker resolve will get increased. That's what the talent does. The next one is Inscribed Soul. The Psyker gains the Inscribed Soul ability. It costs no action points, but it deals direct damage to the Psyker equal to 25% of the Psyker maximum health. The next psychic power used after this ability will not trigger psychic phenomena, okay? There is no possibility to summon psychic phenomena or Perils of the Warp, and will not damage the Veil. In other words, when you use Inscribed Soul, you're safe to cast spells without penalties. The next talent would be Sacred Rituals. Psychic powers have a 25% chance to regain action points spent on psychic powers when Veil degradation is 10 or lower. Very simple, it is what it says it does. You have a chance to recover action points. The next one would be Blade of Light. Force weapon attacks deal Psi rating more damage and have plus 5 multiplied Psi rating percentage more armor penetration. When you use force weapons, you're gonna hurt more. That's what they wanna say with a Blade of Light. Force weapons hurt more. That's it. The next one would be Enforce Reality. Usage of Heroic Act by the Psyker decreases Veil degradation by intelligence. What it means in other words, when you use your ultimate skill, your ultimate ability as a Psyker, you're gonna decrease Veil, okay, so less shit will happen during combat. The next talent would be Psychic Barrage. Whenever the Psyker uses a damaging psychic power on a target that are 6 cells or further from the Psyker, so those that are far away, the targets suffer an additional ballistic damage. If you have ballistics on your Psyker, for example, you play a sniper Psyker, you're gonna hurt more with your sniper. That's what it does. The next one would be Second Sight talent. The Psyker psychic powers that have a range of 2 cells or more have the range increased by perception. It depends out of your perception bonus, and you can increase the tiles where you can reach enemies with your spells, with your psychic abilities, with a Second Sight. The next talent would be Stabilizing Factor. The first psychic power used each turn increases Veil degradation by 2 points less. If this talent reduces the effect on Veil degradation to less than 0, Veil degradation is instead decreased by 1. It is what it says it does, okay? You decrease Veil degradation. There is a smaller chance for shit to happen when you cast spells. The next would be Subtle Manipulation. The Psyker can use a damaging psychic power while being threatened by enemies in a melee range without provoking attacks of opportunity. So if an enemy is close by, you wanna do a spell on them, they're gonna whack you if you try to cast a spell. Okay. With Subtle Manipulation, they won't whack you and you will be able to cast a spell and hurt them. Non-damaging psychic powers do not provoke attacks of opportunity even without this talent, so if you wanna cast a buff, debuff, you do not provoke enemies in that case. And you don't need this talent then. And the last one would be Obscured Threat. While the Psyker is not in the target's line of sight or the Psyker is in cover, all resistant tests of the target suffer -4 multiplied Psy rating penalty. Very simple, you're more resistant when you are in full cover. That's the talent. And as I said, the most complex class in a game would be Psyker. There is more. Now, with a Sanctioned Psyker, we can pick a Biomancer, a Diviner, a Pyromancer, SANCTIC, and Telepath. There's a lot. Okay, now let's see what does what. And then we're gonna merge it with the homeworld. The first one in line would be Psyker Biomancer. This is for a tanky Psyker, a tanky build. Okay, Bruiser Psyker. Something like your companion Heinrichs. Alright, the Inquisitor. Biomancers are able to heal wounds and buff themselves up. The first thing that you're gonna receive would be the Iron Arm. That's gonna give you additional strength and toughness until the end of combat. Extremely useful spell. Extremely useful. You can cast it on others as well. And now, from the talents on a Biomancer, we got Adrenaline Surge. On the first turn of every combat, all psychic powers of the Biomancer discipline cost -1 action point. What is there to say? You can cast multiple spells if you take Adrenaline Surge, okay, with your Biomancer Psyker. The next one would be Biophysical Distortion. All the Psyker's attacks, including damaging psychic powers, now poison enemies. This poison deals 4 times Psy rating damage every turn. In other words, whenever you attack an enemy, you're gonna poison them, in short. The next one would be Sanguine Siphon. Every time the Psyker deals damage, they gain +1 stack of Sanguine Siphon effect. If that damage was dealt to a target adjected to the Psyker, they gain +2 stacks instead. So that's why I say it's good to be a melee Biomancer. Alright, better than ranged. You get more stacks. When the Psyker suffers little damage, the stacks of Sanguine Siphon are removed to reduce this damage by 1 for each stack, until either all stacks are removed or damage is no longer lethal. In other words, Sanguine Siphon will help you survive, and that's very good for a melee Biomancer. The next talent would be Comfort Immunity. Whenever the Psyker is healed or heals an ally, if the character being healed is already at full wounds, the character instead will gain temporary wounds equal to the healing. Temporary wounds do not stack though. What does it mean? If your character has 100 HP and you heal them with a Psyker and the heal is like 20, now they're gonna have 120 HP if they're on full health. Okay, temporary wounds, temporary health. Extremely useful. Extremely good pre-buff. The next one would be Corpus Conversion. When an enemy adjected to an ally dies, that ally gains a stacking Corpus Conversion effect. If multiple allies are adjected to the dead enemy, one is selected at random. The Psyker next psychic power that targets only the target with Corpus Conversion will work as if the Psyker Psy rating is +2 higher, will not damage the Veil, will not trigger psychic phenomena or Perils of the Warp, and it will remove -1 stack of Corpus Conversion from the target. In other words, when someone dies close by your allies or by you, and you use your spells, you do not trigger the psychic phenomena. And your Psy powers, Biomancer powers, are +2 higher, you're gonna hurt more. The next one will be Pulse of Light. Whenever the Psyker heals themselves or another character with a psychic power or an effect applied by a psychic power, the healing can critically heal with a chance of 5 + 2 multiplied willpower bonus percentage. This critical heal chance is increased by all the effects that increase critical hit chance, and the amount healed is increased by the same value as critical damage. You can critically heal if you're lucky enough, or basically you can heal the entire health bar of your ally or give tremendous amount of temporary wounds. The next one would be Strange Vitality. When the Psyker allies or the Psyker themselves are under the effect of the psychic powers, they gain +5 toughness for each of such effects. So whenever you buff an ally with a Psyker, they're gonna gain toughness as well. They're gonna be harder to kill. Very good on temporary wounds, for example, temporary heal plus toughness now. It merges well. And the last one would be Twist Flash. Whenever an effect applied by the Psyker increases the damage suffered by a target, this effect is increased by half. For example, 20% increase turns into a 30% increase. In short, your damage dealing spells will hurt more. So what is the home world for your Biomancer Psyker? The very good one would be the Forge world with either armor or analytics, intelligence bonus, critical hit. It depends which one you like out of these two, subskin or analytics. And this would be the squishier version. The tanky version is from the Death World Psyker. Okay, full tanky Biomancer. All around supportive Psyker, BIOMANCER would be from the Imperial world. And the last one that merges extremely well with a BIOMANCER, but as a spellcaster, not that much as a melee, as a spellcaster, would be the Voidborn. How you should play and what is the best? The best by far would be the Forge world with toughness armor bonus, subskin armor. The next one would be melee death world, and then it's the Voidborn and Imperial all around. Okay, supportive. I recommend Forge world, subskin armor, Psyker, BIOMANCER. The next subclass of a Sanctioned Psyker would be Diviner. Diviners predict the future. Okay, they can see in the future the things that are about to come. In other words, this is a skill check Psyker, Diviner. You're gonna have a lot of good options in conversations, okay? During ambushes and so on, you're gonna smell it all, basically, up front. The next feature would be forewarning. The Psyker increases the target's dodge and parry by percentages from perception, and the Psy rating depends how high your Psy rating is until the end of combat. What it does, it gives dodge and parry to the ally. Okay, they're harder to kill, enemies gonna miss them more. Forewarning is extremely good. Extremely good. Especially when you cast on agility tank. It's freaking insane. Enemies will miss non-stop. Even if they hit, you have a chance to parry. Talents. The very first one would be Edge of Fate. At the beginning of every combat, the Psyker allies will gain critical hit chance, and once you score a crit, the bonus erases. Useful and not at the same time. Okay, I would never take it on unfair, for example, that's only 50% crit hit chance, but on easier difficulties, I guess it's useful. Combat will last, let's say, a turn or two less. The next talent would be a Fate Bringer. Allies under the effect of at least one psychic power, so when you buff them up, gain additional Psy rating percentage armor penetration. Good, okay, when you cast like Forewarning on Argenta, now she's gonna hurt even more with a Fate Bringer. Okay, she's gonna have additional armor penetration. She already have huge armor penetration as a soldier, marksman. Now imagine with a Fate Bringer. The next talent would be Flawless Plan. Every 9th successful dodge and or parry by the Psyker and their allies combined grants the Psyker 2 additional action points on the next turn. Very good, okay? Very, very good. You need to enemies to shoot 9 times. Doesn't matter if they hit, or you dodge, or you parry, or whatever. Once 9 attacks are triggered, you gain 2 additional action points in the next round. Very good. The next one would be Predicted Downfall. The first dodge attempt of every enemy in combat suffers -7 multiplied Psyker Psy rating percentage penalty. In other words, to short this up, enemies won't dodge as much. Okay, you're gonna hit them. And the last talent would be Unnatural Luck. When the Psyker uses a divination psychic power on an ally without an unnatural luck effect, that ally gains unnatural luck. What is unnatural luck? When the ally suffers a crit, it becomes a normal hit instead, and the unnatural luck effect is removed. You can't get one-shotted. Your allies cannot get one-shotted when they score a crit. It's gonna be a normal hit. Extremely good. Now, what is the home world for the Diviner? The best one, by far, for the Diviner Psyker would be the Voidborn. After the Voidborn, it's the Fortress world if you wanna deal damage as well, okay, with ballistics. And the third option would be all around Imperial world. I recommend doing Voidborn for Diviner Psyker. The next subclass of the Sanctioned Psyker would be Pyromancer. What is there to say? You're gonna burn your enemies. Simple as that. The feature you receive is Pyromancy. A Pyromancer is a master of flame, a Psyker who's able to create searing infernos out of thin air. Pyromancy is one of the most spectacular and destructive forms of psychic ability, and those who face a Pyromancer in combat are often reduced to naught but a pile of charred bones. So fire spells and fire spells only. feature would be Ignite. The target suffers a lot of damage considering your Psy rating, and it gains the Warp Burn effect. This attack has armor penetration. You burn enemies turn by turn by turn, okay? You make them burn. Now what is the Warp Burn? Warp Burn deals willpower bonus, so it scales with willpower, to the target at the end of their turn. At the end of every turn, they burn. If the creature passes an agility test, they remove burning. They roll the dice. Ignite is absolutely crazy good in this game. The first talent would be Blazing Inferno. The Psyker critical hit chance increases by 1% until the end of combat every time the Psyker deals damage by any means. So the combat lasts and the awesome fights that last for 20-30 minutes. Okay, when you're gonna play multiple times, you can raise this up by 30%. Extremely good, Blazing Inferno. The next talent would be Backdraft. Whenever a psychic power used by the Psyker deals damage, a random enemy within 2 cells from the initial target suffers half of this damage. That damage does not trigger this talent again. Good, okay, you hit multiple enemies at once with this talent. The next talent would be Body of Flames. The Psyker gains +8 multiplied Psy rating percentage additional armor against fire. Fire can't do anything to you anymore because you're a Pyromancer. And half this amount is additional armor against energy damage from laser, melta, and plasma weapons. So enemies that shoot you from laser weapons, melta weapons, and plasma weapons will deal less damage to you. And fire deals basically nothing. Crazy defensive talent. Okay, Body of Flame. The next talent would be Relentless Blaze. When the Psyker is burning, the Psyker's Psy rating is increased by +1. Your spells hurt more. As the Psy rating rises, okay, your spells deal more damage. And the Psyker Resolve is increased by 2. Damage from fire no longer reduces the Psyker's momentum. When you burn, you do not lose momentum, so you can use your ulti spells. Okay, the Relentless Blaze is pretty much a must as soon as possible. The next one would be Burning Blood. When the Psyker uses a psychic power, all enemies attracted to the Psyker suffer 4 times Psy rating direct damage. The same also happens when the Psyker suffers damage from burn, bleed, or melee attacks. Now, should I call this that you're chaotic? Everything around you burns, bleed, your allies, enemies, everything around you is chaos. That's the talent. The next one would be Warped Minds. After every 6th use of psychic powers, after every 6th spell by the Psyker, all enemies gain a stacking -5 penalty to all characteristics until the end of combat. When they receive the penalty to all characteristics, they get weaker, and hence they're easier to kill. Extremely good spell, Warp Minds, extremely good. The next talent would be Melting Like Wax. Every time an enemy suffers damage from the Psyker, the enemy armor is reduced by -3%. If the enemy armor is already 0, this enemy deflection is reduced by 1%, by -1 flat instead. Great spell, great talent, you just reduce their armor, and after that you're gonna reduce their deflection. They get squishier and squishier, hence easier to kill. This is a boss killer spell. And the last talent would be Sparks of the Greater Flame. All damage over time effects applied by the Psyker gain 5 + 5 multiplied Psy rating percentage critical hit chance. The chance is increased by all bonuses to critical hit chance. To make it short, you're gonna crit more often as a Psyker. Now, what is the best homeworld for the Pyromancer Psyker? The first and the obvious one would be the Forge world, cause the fires of the Forge merges well with the Pyromancer. Okay, you receive intelligence, you'll be a bit more tougher, okay, and from here you can get agility bonus to dodge as well, okay, from the locomotion system. Extremely good. Also, you can profit out of analytics. I recommend locomotion Pyromancer Psyker from the Forge world. The second obvious choice would be the Voidborn, classic mage Pyromancer. Okay, if you wanna play something as an evocation wizard from Wrath of the Righteous, this is it. Voidborn, psychic, Pyromancer. And for the end, all around, Imperial world merges with everything, a bit of damage, a bit of support. The next subclass of a Sanctioned Psyker would be SANCTIC. Servants of the Emperor, those that hate demons, Great Inquisitors. In other words, you're tanky, bulky, Psyker, SANCTIC, buffing and protecting allies and dealing damage to heretics. The feature that we get is the Word of the Emperor. All allies in a circle with a 5-cell radius gain Psy rating resolve until the end of the combat. Every additional stack of this effect increases the resolve bonus by +2. You are a bulky Psyker, okay, tank Psyker. And everyone around you gets protection from the Word of the Emperor. From the talents, we get Destined as the first one for the SANCTIC. The Psyker armor increases by 5%. This bonus increases by 5% at the start of every turn of combat except the first. You get tankier and tankier the more you spend time in combat. Okay, extremely good. The next one would be Edge of Dawn. Enemies adjacent to the Psyker suffer 10% more damage, so you're a bulky, tanky SANCTIC Psyker, you go all in into enemies, they surround you, and then your allies will deal 10% more damage when shooting them, as long as you stay close to those enemies, as a SANCTIC. The next one would be Eternal Glory talent. The first time that momentum reaches 200 during the Psyker turn, the Psyker gains +5 to all characteristics, +1 to resolve, 1 to deflection, 1 to all damage that the Psyker deals until the end of combat. So when you build up momentum, and you can build up momentum very fast if you know what you're doing, you get huge perma buffs until the end of the combat. Eternal Glory is freaking crazy. The next talent would be Psalms of Heroes. The Psyker Psy rating is increased by +1 until the end of combat every time an ally uses a heroic act. So when your allies use ultis, okay, the most powerful spells in the game that you build with momentum. So once they use ultis, your Psy rating goes up. Hence, your powers become stronger. You're gonna hurt more, your buffs will be more potent. Okay, Psalm of Heroes is absolutely great if you wanna play something as a support, tanky SANCTIC. The next one would be Sanctified Slayer. The Psyker critical hit chance is increased by his resolve percentage. The bigger your resolve is, and it is big because you're tanky, the bigger your critical hit chance is. Very simple to understand, you hurt more when you take this talent. What is the best home world for our tanky SANCTIC Psyker? The obvious choice would be the Death World, because you receive all the tanky stats that you need. The next choice would be the High World, supportive tanky Psyker. Your third choice would be the Forge World with subskin armor to become even more tankier. Okay, you just go here and pick subskin armor. All around Imperial, a bit of tankiness, a bit of support. So which one we gonna take? I recommend Death World as the best one, closely followed by the Forge World, subskin armor, into the High World, into the Imperial World. This is the best one by far for SANCTIC. And the last subclass for the Psyker would be Telepath, or better to say, this is a classic Psyker, default Psyker, damage dealing Psyker with psychic abilities. They're debuffers, buffers, and damage dealers. Classic mages. The first feature that you receive would be telepathy. You charm an enemy, you make him play for you, or you fear them, or do stupid stuff to them, okay? You manipulate enemies with telepathy. The next feature would be Psychic Shriek, your main damage dealing spell. Huge AoE damage dealing spell. That's what Psychic Shriek is. You shout and you deal damage. Now, from the talents, the first one will be Aftershock. What is Aftershock? Every time the Psyker deals mental damage from any source other than Aftershock, the target suffers half as much mental damage at the end of its next turn. You transfer damage to the next turn when you deal mental damage to enemies. You'll see what mental spells are once you start playing. The next talent would be Mental Breach. Enemies that have taken damage from the Psyker at least once suffer -20 penalty to all resist tests against the Psyker until the end of combat. If you cast a spell that requires resists, okay, on each turn, for example, for them to set free from the mind control, let's say, they got lower chance to roll good and release themselves from your influence, from your mind controlling spells. When you take Mental Breach, they're yours, you command them. The next talent would be Mind Siege. Enemies that have failed a willpower resist test against any of the Psyker psychic powers will suffer additional mental damage every time they suffer mental damage until the end of combat. So Mental Breach merges extremely well with Mind Siege, alright? The next one would be Mind Thief talent. Anytime an enemy becomes a target of any particular Psyker ability for the first time, this enemy suffers a -5 penalty to their intelligence and perception, and the Psyker intelligence and perception increases by +2 until the end of combat. What it does, in short, you debuff enemy and buff yourself. Enemy hurt less, squishier, you hurt more, tankier. That's it. The next one would be Pain Channeling talent. Whenever the Psyker kills an enemy with a psychic power, dealing more damage than wounds of the target, the excess damage will be dealt to the enemy closest to the target. So when you overkill an enemy, the other one close by will suffer additional damage of the overkill. Very good talent for aggressive telepath. The next talent would be Visions of Doom. Enemies that become targets of the Psyker psychic powers gain a stacking -5% penalty to their dodge and parry until the end of combat. Enemies that you hit, no matter with what, will become easier targets for you and for your allies to kill. Simple as that. The next one would be Warp Minds. After every 6 use of psychic power by the Psyker, all enemies gain a stacking -5 penalty to all characteristics until the end of combat. You easily gonna use during combat your powers 6 times, okay? And then all enemies will be weaker after that. Very simple. The last talent would be Weak Hearts. Enemies currently inflicted with blinded, stunned, immobilized or prone, and you do that as a Psyker to them, suffer +10% more damage. Boss Killer, okay, you put some of these effects on a boss, and then they suffer 10% more damage from your allies. That's how it works. So what is the best home world for Telepath? Pure Psyker, okay. Buffer, debuffer, damage dealing Psyker Telepath. The best one by far is the Voidborn. If you wanna shoot and have abilities as well, then you're gonna pick Fortress World as the whole world. Imperial World for a supportive, mage-like all-around Psyker Telepath. And one of the best things to take would be the Forge World Analytics system that gonna grant increased criticals if you go with the Forge World Analytics. I hope I did not overwhelm you with all of this info, but we are covering all the entire character creation, and I explained what every homeworld does to Origin and the subclasses and how they merge together. And now, no matter what you pick the homeworld and then you pick into some of the subclasses, alright? And then you go to Triumph, it will change. This is the background for your character of how the world perceives you, conversation options and so on. This is all up to you. Okay, I do not have any recommendation here. It depends how you wanna play. Read what it does, and that's how your campaign will look like. Same goes with the Darkest Hour. No matter what you pick, something will happen during the campaign. So this basically Triumph and Darkest Hour allow replay value. Okay, that's what it does. It's not important for the exact combat. Triumph and Darkest Hour are there for the story.
Are you ready for Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader? As I am. The Emperor protects.